and we're going to hear from David Coghlan, who's a Professor Emeritus at the Trinity Business School in Trinity College, Dublin. He's the author of numerous articles on action research and several books, including Doing Action Research in Your Own Organisation and Conducting Action Research for Business and Management Students. He's co-editor of the Handbook of Research Methods in Organisational Change and the Sage Encyclopedia of Action Research. He's on the editorial board of several journals, including the Journal of Applied Behavioural Science, Action Research, Systemic Practice and Action Research, and Action Learning Research and Practice. And we're delighted to have David Coghlan here today to present his work. Thank you, David.
Okay, so I've been asked just to share some reflections for you, and these will be on your website and so on. So I want to talk about action research scholarship through first, second, and third person practice. And I think anything I say in the next 15 minutes or so won't be anything new for you. So I'm taking that, okay, action research, scholarship, first person, so I want to explore that. And there's not much to say about action research, but I want to put another, there's lots of definitions of action research, but this is one I like, and it's never cited because it's just a paragraph in an article by David Greenwood. But I like the way it talks, really. So it's neither a method or a technique. So I get very peeved when people see action research as a method. And I get even more peeved if they see it as a qualitative method, as if research is either qualitative or quantitative. There is actually a third dimension, which is that emancipatory, liberationary, whatever you want, category you want to put it. So it's neither a method or a technique. It's an approach to living in the world. So that's, for me, it's a philosophy, it's a so on. That includes the creation of arenas for collaborative learning and the design, enactment, evaluation of liberating action. So that's, for me, is what action research is about. I remember there was a very eminent Norwegian, probably the most eminent action researcher in the Northern Hemisphere for years, but he always said that the basis for his action research was democracy theory. That was his foundation, always democracy theory. So whose voice, who's it for, who's it with, and so on. So obviously then it combines action research, reflection, action in this ongoing cycle of co-generative knowledge. So the knowledge comes out of the work together, so on. So you know all that already. So that's the first kind of point. I just want to make a couple of points before the second point then is, again, you know this already. In action research, we talk about three practices, three audiences, first, second, and third person. Or it was originally articulated by Peter Reason and Judy Marshall. Research is for me, us, and them. And the me is how the action researcher engages in a reflective practice and learns about themselves and so on, learns skills and so on. The us is who we're working with and what it's about and so on. And the them is that it's producing something for another audience outside of those directly involved. And again, that for me is a neglected area in action research. I've been at conferences where people tell very good stories. But my question always is, why? What's this story for me who wasn't there? What do you want to say to the rest of the world? And of course, that's the big doctoral question. So what? You have a good story, people did that and the other, but then so what? So that's the third person stuff. So let me just elaborate that a little bit. So first person is, so again, the ability of the researcher to reflect in their own lives, and you're well familiar with that. People like Jack Whitehead and so on, and Judy Marshall and people like that have been talking about that stuff for years, about really learning yourself, about yourself, and being able to act out of awareness and so on. So second person is our ability to work with others on a face-to-face, or maybe even now digitally, working with individuals, working in groups on issues of mutual concern. And of course, that for me is, and I'll say something, that for me is the heart of. And third person, again, as I've just said, is creating a wider community of inquiry. So it comes out through the publishing. And why should anybody be interested in what we're doing when they weren't directly involved? And that for me is often a weakness. Sloppy action research is often where people tell a good story and nothing else. And of course, for people who are doing thesis work, whether it's doctorate or master's or just a kind of a reflective essay in as an undergraduate, that's always the question. What are you contributing to a wider audience other than the people who are directly involved? So the issue is, how do we integrate? The issue really for me is the integration. It's very easy. You can have one, you can have either the other. And for me, second person is at the heart of action research. We work with people who have a concern about something because it's important. We do action research on things we care about. We do action research on the things that affect our world and our, whether it's our global world or a particular aspect of our world in our school or in our community or in our organization or something. And that for me is the heart of it. And it's from the challenges of doing second person that first person comes out. It's when you start working with people, you realize you've got biases and lack of skills and there's lack of awareness. And so it comes out of the second person. And it's like, you know, that's the kind of basic developmental psychology. It's when children go to school that they learn how to relate to other people. It's that same kind of further on that. And therefore, the third person then comes out of that integration of first person and second person. So if this third person doesn't come out of the second person work and the first person in reflective work, then it's distorted. And of course, that's what we get. A lot of most research is third person research without any mention or integration of first and second person. Okay, you know all that. So I'm just, and therefore, how do we engage in that? We engage in that by assembling the process of how we know, how we are attentive to what's going on around us and being attentive to our own data of consciousness, how we're thinking, feeling, interpreting, and so on. We're being intelligent then in envisioning various explanations of that data, what's going on, what does it mean? And then being reasonable and saying, well, this is the best solution that I have in trying to interpret what's going on here, and I've tested it in different kind of ways and so on. Again, you know all that, right? That's basic cognitional theory. So let me say something about theorizing, because theorizing is, I've got interested in hearing theorizing over the last while. There's a great book which is on references, and there's a few useful readings at the end of these slides, so you can get them. So there's a great little book which is worth buying. I've bought it and I've given it as presents to loads of people and so on, by Hansen and Madsen. And yeah, I'll give you the references there. But they say basically, look, that theorizing is neglected. We always talk about what the theory is. And of course, examinations and everything is all about the theory. What is the output? But very few people talk about how do you get there? How do you theorize? And they say theorizing not only attends to external data, i.e. what does the data say, whatever the data might be, but to the internal data of our own thinking and assumptions, and engaging in the community to reading, talking, listening, questioning, and writing. I remember being at a seminar, the Academy Manager once, and I was in a small group with all sorts of people. But there was this doctorate student who asked at one stage, how do you know when you've enough data? Great question. And one of my colleagues, who's a very, very eminent person in the world of organizational studies, said, the data will tell you. And I said, no, you make a judgment. And it's your experience and obviously your education and your training that enables you to say, I have enough data or I don't. But she was externalizing the theorizing, but it's actually something that happens in us. So that's part of really what my talk is about. How do we tend to what's happening in us? Okay. And this is basically cognitional theory, that we attend to our experience and the outer data of sense, i.e. what we see and hear going on, and what's going on in us, how we're interpreting and thinking and imagining and feeling and so on. We question this data. So what's going on? How is it going on? Why is it going? All those kind of questions. And then the question, is that true? Does it fit? Or am I making it up? Am I acting out of a distorted bias or whatever it is? And you have all these people who actually talk about that. Chris Argyris and all these people like that. Kahneman and Ellen Langer, and all they talk about the mindfulness of the mind. How do we come to judgment? How do we weigh up different experiences? All that kind of good cognitional stuff on that. And we do that in a school in our discipline, whether it's education or nursing or business studies, and we engage then in a community of scholars and peers and so on. Now, so this is essentially my overall map of what I'm saying. We have the second person collaborative inquiry and action with a group of people. We do research with people rather than on them or rather than for them. Again, you know all that. And within the second person is our own first person reflexivity or interiority or whatever it might be. And the outcome of that comes in the third person practical knowledge. As action research tries to generate practical knowledge, we learn how to do things, how to improve whatever it is we're trying to improve or transform whatever it is. And in doing that, we're always being attentive to what's going on. We're being intelligent in how we judge it and reasonable in our assumptions. And then we take responsibility for our actions, which of course was the ethics piece you just said. Yeah. So that's my little message for today, right? And I say it's on these slides. So my question really is, and this is more about obviously your meeting and having a discussion rather than me listening to me. But a lot of this I've said in different kind of places, but this is kind of where I'm going at the moment. So a couple of questions that we might look at, or something we might talk about is, if you think of an action research context in which you have worked with whomever, like who was the group or the people, whether they were students or other teachers or whatever, who was the group? What were the issues that the group was concerned to address? What were your observations in working with them? What did you question? What outcomes? Those kind of second person kind of things. And then during that, what did you notice about your own thinking and your own interventions into the group? Did you catch yourself learning anything about yourself? And then what outcomes emerged, both in terms of the work of the group, whatever that might be, and then some kind of knowledge in some form or practical knowledge. So I thought you might, if you maybe buzz a bit in twos or threes or something. I didn't know many people were going to do it. You go on. And kind of see what you have to say about that. See if you can tap into that as an expression of this. And then we'll talk and see where we are. How's that sound?